Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss a short story by Katherine Mansfield named The Garden Party.
And Katherine Mansfield is known for being a journalist. She's known for being an essayist and writer, poet. She has written several short stories, but unfortunately, she died at the age of 34 because she was diagnosed with tuberculosis. So, and she herself was from a very privileged background. She was from a very well-off family. She belonged to a very well-off family.
She belonged to a very well-off family, but somehow something happened after she fell sick that didn't, because of which she was not wealthy anymore, and she was in fact uh, poor. No, she became poor.
Right.
She became poor before her death, but uh, in this short life that she had lived, she had earned and learned a lot of experience, which was enough for making her able to write the kind of work she has written.
Hmm. And all her short stories are pretty famous. Now,
So
talking about the story that we have taken up, it's called The Garden Party.
the story begins with a party preparation that is going on in a family which seems very well off. And later, when we read further, we see how there are flowers, there is food, there is all sort of decoration that you need to have a grand party in a upper class in an upper class home. So
Right.
they have a cook. They also have other servants who are working for making the party a success. They are workmen
Yeah.
who, yeah, they are workmen who have come to the garden preparing to set up the tent, which they refer to as marquee.
All the story really is, it's funny because the story never talks about the actual party that happened. It all just talks about the pre and the post party times. When the story starts, it's just talking about the preparation, and it's after that we never see the party really happening. We come to the end, the after party scene. So it's very funny. It's very witty. Sometimes the characters, Laura is basically, we can consider her the protagonist here, if there is one.
Yeah.
Because she has a lot of, we get to know her a lot in this story more than anyone else. Her mother is, we see her mother being very uninterested at first, and then surprisingly she becomes really interested in the whole party preparation, as well as how she is going to look. She's trying on different hats, so it's very funny in that way. But then the story progresses, and we come to know that a man who is apparently their neighbor died in front of their house due to some accident. And after finding this about this incident, Laura believes that they shouldn't really have the party now, because this would be a bad.
She feels guilty of celebrating when
Right,
somebody died.
exactly. But nevertheless, they all have a party.
Yeah, and somewhere she also starts accepting that yes, they can have a party somewhere. So
Right.
the resistance she showed earlier doesn't persist anymore, and they have a party. At the end of the party, we see how there was a lot of food that was remaining, and the
Hmm.
mother suddenly comes up with this idea of sending all those to the house of the
The
person,
widow.
yeah, to the widow's house, the person where the house where the man had died. and we see how Laura takes all the food and goes to that home with it.
The story ends. The story ends where Laura is at that man's house. She has witnessed the whole thing. She has seen the dead man. She has seen the widow. She has come out of the house. She's just wondering about life. She says this dialogue about, which is very, at the very end, I would say, she says something like,
She
it was
stammers.
simply marvelous. But
Hmm.
she's, she stopped, she looked at her brother. Isn't life, she stammered, isn't life, but what life was, she couldn't explain. No matter, he quite understood. And Laurie says, isn't it, darling? This is how the story ends.
The main theme of the story is class difference, as we have seen right from the beginning. So the workmen, they belong to a lower class, while the home they are working at is an upper class family.
Hmm.
Laura is also a part of that upper class family. However, she is different from the rest. That can be seen when we see her observant nature and how she breaks little rules. But
Small norms.
yes, for example, when she was in the garden with the workmen there, so Laura had cream puff in her hand while she was in the garden with the workmen, and we see
Hmm.
how she thinks about it. First she thinks she shouldn't have brought that cream puff out there in the garden. She should have eaten it
To
at
eat it.
yeah, and maybe also because it was not the time when somebody would have a cream puff. So she
It
was,
was not conventional for her to eat it in front of strangers,
yeah,
maybe.
that was
And
there. And also, there are certain food which are to be eaten at a certain time of the day. And that was not the right
yeah,
time for eating that cream puff. And of course, she also thought that she shouldn't be eating it in front of the workmen there. But
she
after that
became very
point,
conscious.
yeah, uh, but suddenly she takes a big bite of that cream puff, where we see how she is rebellious in nature. At least she is not like the rest of them. She, we can see her individual self there for the first time.
Right. Hmm. I mean, and I feel like she's constantly, consciously doing that. She's, she wants to be one of them as well. She desires to be one of them. It is
Yes.
not very normal for her, but she tries all the
Yeah.
time.
Maybe it's
We
like
see,
she gets bored doing the same thing, the same kind of routine, following the same rules. So sometimes she wants to see what happens if she loses all this control and she doesn't follow the rules that are supposed to be followed.
right, throughout the story, she is having these conflicting moments. Um, but yeah, talking about class conflict, sorry, the differences between the classes, we can see it we can see it subtly, I think, through, as the writer chose not to tell us the names of people who belong to lower class. So we see that the cook doesn't have a name. The workman, although Laura many a times talks about the specific workman whom she desires or maybe she's very impressed with, we don't know his name. Even the man who died, who is pretty important in the story, we don't know his name, or the widow. So we never know anyone's name who is not as same as belongs to the same class as Laura's family.
Yeah. Again, I have read this interpretation of that garden as the Garden of Eden,
Hmm,
and Laura doesn't follow the rules of the garden. She
right.
tastes the fruit by breaking the rules. So,
She's she's very inquisitive. She's very curious, just as
like Eve.
Eve is. So yeah, I think that can definitely be something on author's mind when she wrote this.
Also, in the beginning, when we started talking about the story, its summary, there you mentioned how the story talks about what happened before the party and what happened after it, but seldom it talks about what happened in the party. Somewhere we can draw a parallel there with the achievements and accomplishments that we want in our life. So it's like what matters is what we do before getting what we want and what happens after we have achieved our goals. Um, so
What we do to get that goal, and what we have after we get that goal. Never about that goal. Is that
somehow,
something
somehow, because
somewhat?
when, yeah,
Yeah.
um, the workman that Laura talks about and appreciates, and in a way, somehow she likes the workman and the ability of the workman to appreciate little things in little things around him. We see that when the workman crushes that lavender which had fallen and smells it. So it's such a little act, but somehow, but somewhere, Laura Laura also appreciates it.
She feels like she likes that down to earth personality of that workman.
Yes,
Mm. It's very much lost within people who she is around all the time. Nobody does that.
that's exactly why she finds it attractive and different, and she's
Mm,
fascinated by it. But when somebody can actually notice these little things, it also tells us more about the person who is noticing it. The fact that she
right.
noticed it also tells us how she also notices little things and she can also find beauty in little things around her.
Mm, and
Then,
appreciates it.
yes. And then we come across the symbol of lilies. There are so many in number. So it can be a symbol for the number, the large number of lilies can be a symbol for the extravagant nature of the family members because they were well off. So,
The two flowers and the number of flowers, or maybe the way that these flowers are presented within the story, is juxtaposed in a manner which is very, very relevant to the story, the theme as well, which is
yeah,
difference in the class.
yes. Maybe we can also say that just having something in excess doesn't mean you can enjoy it in reality because
Yeah,
the ability of experiencing something, it's very in
relative.
yeah, it is relative and it doesn't depend upon how much you have but how much you can experience. So
Yeah, true. And I think that Laura also realizes this a lot.
yes.
Okay.
We have also seen the symbolism of death and life in the story. In fact, the story ends with a sentence on what life is, which we have already talked about in this video.
Hmm.
So we can see it in multiple ways. Maybe one of the interpretations could be uh, that the garden party or the garden represents life because it's all beautiful, decorated, happy in a way, and
Yeah.
the other side where there is a widow who is crying over the death of her husband, who is left with so many children. That is a little dark, so maybe we can take it as a symbol of death.
That.
So maybe the writer is trying to tell us that life and death they coexist. Another interpretation could be that Laura is a Laura is able to understand that nothing really matters because everything comes to a full stop with death.
with death. Yeah,
Yeah.
death is permanent, and
Yes,
it
it is the truth.
nothing matters. No bands, no marquee, no parties will matter eventually when people are dead. She realizes that when she says this, we have a we have a few lines for this when she witnessed the young man who was dead. Um, she says something like the young man fast asleep, sleeping so soundly, so deeply, and he doesn't care about the parties and the baskets. He looks so content. She talks as if he is a sleeping person who is very satisfied, who is not dead at all. So
And somehow, the third way I look at it is that maybe she never understands the meaning of death. And that's why she looks
yeah,
at it as a peaceful act, maybe. Um, I would like to mention another thing here. Uh, we see how one of her sisters sing the song which has this lyrics, life is weary. But when she sings it, when she utters those words, she smiles. And that tells us how she has no idea about what weariness is or what life is.
right.
So,
Very ignorant of that.
yes, ignorant of the meaning of life. Okay.
Okay, so the whole story is where Laura is the character of Laura is struggling throughout, and having contradictory thoughts in her mind. She's struggling with the conflict within her, the conflicting thoughts, as in the personality that she should have within her family and the personality that she actually has, the questions that she, asks, the curiosity that she has. So we can see all of that. She doesn't belong there. She has a very curious mind. So I think this is also, we can, I don't know much about the author. We might not know more about her, but what really prompted her to write this. But maybe we can say this is something like an autobiographical story.
Resonates with the kind of wealthy
Life.
background. Yeah,
Hmm.
the kind of
Of the author.
wealthy background. Yeah, the author. Thank you for watching this, and we hope you liked the analysis we provided. We'll be coming up with another video soon. If there is something you would like to share, please comment.
And please like if you like the video.
Yes. And even if you didn't like it, let us know so that we can make some changes and post again.
Thank you.
Yeah.